in Germany, which was even more economically developed, had a huge communist party, had a bigger socialist, moderate socialist party. Another fascist came forward, Hitler, and from nothing was propelled to become the second largest, or eventually the first largest party in the country, with millions and millions. But it wasn't an electoral movement. It was, again, a military mass movement, and its goal was to smash the working class. Because the German leader, the government, the Wall Street of Germany, was petrified by this huge socialist and communist organized trade union, everything, parties, representatives in the parliament, the Reichstag. They were petrified about it, and they felt that they maybe should destroy it entirely, and they did so. But it wasn't just normal police repression. Sometimes we walk around, we say, ah, you fascist pig, if you see a cop beating someone. It's not technically correct. The capitalists have never been very friendly to workers. They have beaten, they have killed, they have assassinated, terrorized, but fascism has a special meaning. If you want to be a little more scientific, that's what we're going to look at today in the scheme of things. And it's basically an ideology and a movement that emerges when capitalism is in decay and crisis. Communism also emerges in those periods, but it's to take the means of production and free them for the working class to run and operate. Fascism, even though it may speak about down with the Wall Street bankers or whatever, and be for the workers, they claim that sometimes. Even the Nazi, when you say Nazis, Nazi means National Socialists. They use the word socialist to confuse the workers, but they were financed by big business, and their objective was to solidify the control of big business, destroy the working class movement, and so try to stabilize a very unstable situation for capitalism in its decline. So they are entirely opposite things, but Glenn Beck and them can use that because most people don't know any of this history, really have no idea what socialism or communism are. And then they can take this brush, well, Stalin killed a lot of people, Hitler killed a lot of people, so they're both the same. And we need to know that they're not the same. And fascism is a great danger. It's a danger in this country, not immediately, but any capitalist country where a decline sets in, a rapid decline, can give birth to a fascist movement. So I don't know if we want to take any discussion now, or should we go into the reading on from the struggle against fascism in Germany? Let's take a few minutes now and talk about communism and fascism, and then we'll go really into fascism from this book. Yes.
So Hitler's movement was, what were they doing? They were like attacking the struggles or the work of the working class. So they were really like, I don't know, armed thugs or whatever.
They were. They had a big movement. Ultimately, they had over 100,000 militia, armed, and financed by big business with cooperation of the police. You know how they do that. They turn. Right. If you pick up a gun, you know, we're all in jail. But if they picked up, they actually helped them get a gun. They attacked the strikers. They were strike breakers. They attacked meetings. And they carried out elections. They carried out parliamentary elections, which were, you know, but their real goal was to set up a mass movement. And when they did seize power, of course, well, you know, we know about the Jews. This is very common. The Jewish people went. That was later. That was years later. The people who went to the concentration camps and were assassinated in the thousands and tens of thousands were the working class leaders, the socialists and the communists. That's who went to jail and to concentration camps first. In 1933, those parties were outlawed. They were smashed. Their buildings were burned. They burnt books. Later, to maintain, because you can only get so far with that, you need to divert people to something else, especially when you're planning a world war. Then you start picking on, well, they didn't have too many minorities in Germany, so Jews were convenient. In this country, it won't be Jewish people probably. It'll be African American and Latino. It's already been African American for centuries. Centuries. So that's where the anti-Semitism came in, but that's not the heart of the fascist movement. And Derek, then Gene. Derek?
Well, okay. So what you're saying fascism is fascists are just really, really very bad capitalists.
Well, we're going to see. I'd like to hold that when we read exactly, because they are different than the capitalists. They are a mass movement. The capitalists are a very small minority of the population. The capitalist class, the billionaire, especially today, the billionaire class number is very small. The billionaires. Even the millionaires don't amount to that many. But that's not what the fascist movement is. The fascist movement is a middle class movement of petty bourgeois, artisans, shopkeepers, skilled workers, tradespeople, functionaries, government officials. Yes, we'll see that. That's the characteristic of it. It's a mass movement. In Germany, it's estimated that the working class had about 13 million people, and the middle class, so-called petty bourgeois, we call them petty bourgeois, small bourgeois, they represent about an equal number. About 50% of the country was middle class and 50% was working class.
Just to follow up before you go in there,
Yeah.
okay, you sort of described socialism and then it sort of evolved into communism, but technically, you know, in all the dictionaries, socialism is sort of like in the middle of capitalism and communism.
And Marx did define that. Socialism would be the first stage, and communism would be a later, higher level. But it means so many different things to different people. If you go to a person on the street, a worker, co-worker, who knows nothing about this history, you say the word socialism, communism, it's all the same to them.
They equate it.
Yeah. If you're talking about the period around World War I, socialists were those who sold out and supported the imperialist war. And communists were those who broke with the war and, you know, were against it. So, yeah, it means different things in different. Marx was writing in the 1800s, the early 1900s. It had meanings. Today, we use it often the same. You know, communist. I'm a socialist. Partly because communist has such a bad name in the U.S. Right? They've spent a lot of money and time to denounce communism. Sometimes we'll tell people we're a socialist. It's almost as bad, but they don't think. But it's not because they know the difference that we're only for a part. Yeah, Workers' World Party is a communist party. It's a Marxist-Leninist party, but it seeks for communism. But we don't always use that word. A lot of times we just talk about socialism, but for us it's the same meaning. So it really depends who you're talking to and when. What
but there is an absolute definition.
No, there is no absolute anything in the world. This is one thing Marx teaches us. There are no absolute categories. The word has different meanings to different people. When Glenn Beck uses it, I don't think he differentiates as socialist or communist. I'm not sure. I haven't studied his writings or speeches. But no, there is no absolute definition. And dictionaries were written by somebody who maybe weren't that aware of it. You have to look at each period of history, what we're talking about.
So are the differences more ideological as opposed to economics? In terms of
socialism and communism?
Yeah.
It just depends who you're talking. You can't say that. There's a Socialist Party of the United States. Okay? It supported the Vietnam War. Yeah, it calls itself Socialist Party. It goes back to Eugene Debs' day and the turn of the century. Mike gave a talk about it up to the Russian Revolution. I don't consider them socialist in any sense of the word, but they consider them moderate socialists who are against communism. So they're a lot of socialists who say, well, we're socialists but not communists, mean that we're against communism, we're against revolution, we're against a Marxist party that will fight to the end. And what that means is they are actually subservient to capitalism. On the other hand, there are other parties that call themselves socialists that might be more revolutionary.